Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. We are a year-round talk series bringing you the best creative voices across film, television, theater, and entertainment. And today we're so lucky to be joined by Jordan Elsass, currently starring in the show Superman and Lois. And I know that when you were auditioning, you actually auditioned for the role of your character's brother first, Jordan. And when you then actually ended up playing Jonathan, I was really interested in how doing that first audition for the other character and really thinking about aspects of his personality and his characteristics, how that actually really helped you then in forming your own character and particularly the relationship between the two of them.
Definitely. I mean, I got to say, when I first auditioned for Jordan, I wasn't really, so first of all, it was fake names. It was Ethan and Matthew, originally when I first auditioned for the role of Jordan. And it was just two scenes that one of them they actually had cut originally from the pilot, and then they added it back in later. But it was a scene between, I think, me and my brother, talking about football, or talking about I think Sarah Cushing, and how she asked for his phone number and not me, and that was one scene that we did, and I did it on both sides, and it gave me this sort of sense that the Jordan was, Jordan character Jordan was a loner, an outsider, a bit socially awkward, but I didn't have much to go off of other than that. I wasn't fully aware of what the show was, what the character was like. Didn't know that he had social anxiety, mental health issues. But then going into the second audition, when I auditioned for Jonathan, luckily I knew a little more. I had much more of a breakdown for the character, and I was able to play it a little more. I guess that it sort of secured the audition for Jonathan, if that makes sense, because I was like, I can kind of go, because I figured they were opposites, just going off what I had, and so I was able to go from kind of this more, a little playing it down a little more and a little more subtle and maybe a little more introverted, to total extrovert, confident, play sports, all that good stuff, and bring that energy to the table. And then they liked that contrast. I think when I actually went down to LA to audition in person with Alex, I think they really liked the contrast that they saw, because Alex pulls off that darker, much more introverted kind of awkward energy, socially awkward energy very, very well. So it worked. I mean, it worked, and it was cool seeing the contrast now. And I realized that I think they cast it appropriately, because it would have been, I think Alex just pulls that off so well. It's hard to match. You know what I mean? I don't know if I would have been able to quite get it to that level.
Yeah. And you've also mentioned how that was the furthest down an audition that you'd gone for a network show before, by the time you got into coming into the room and auditioning with the studio. So what was the difference in the process for you, if there were any?
Definitely. Like, well, so like a difference between that and, say, like the last show I worked on, Little Fires Everywhere, it was, number one, it's a lead role in the show. So it's definitely, it's held at a higher level in terms of the auditioning process. There's just more sort of filters you have to pass through, I guess, just because they want to verify that, like, you can pull this off. And so the difference, one of the big differences, was just more auditions. I mean, it went from callback to another callback to finally being flown out for one screen test, and then another screen test, and then just finally a test without actually any other actors, because originally I had worked with Bitsy and Alex in the room with some producers and everything, and then they actually sent me in just a dark auditorium with like 30 executives and at the CW office, and it was terrifying. And I ran the scenes in there, and that was the final step. But it was a big difference from Little Fires, which was, crazily, it was all in a week. I auditioned a self-tape. I did another self-tape, and then they flew me out for one audition, or one callback, and that was it. And but there's also a difference in time, because the show was a little less rushed at the time, and pre-COVID, they thought they were going to probably already have this thing shot by now, unfortunately, and just it put stupid COVID put a block on literally everything, and it's really changed a lot of our lives for the worse. And so it's a tough situation, but I think that there was a massive difference in the auditioning process in pretty much every way, and even without COVID sort of inhibiting that, I think it still would have been very different.
There's also a difference in the work that you did on Little Fires Everywhere, where, you know, there was a finite journey that your character was going to go on within that story. And then jumping into a show like this, where there's so many unknown elements still, you know, even in terms of his backstory and where his journey's going. So what were some of the really useful pieces of information that Todd Helbing and the rest of the crew gave you in terms of those background details that you didn't have in those first scripts? And how did that really alter your process in developing a character where you didn't have all the answers?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, I think the biggest thing when I've talked to Todd, when I talk to everybody, I feel like the biggest thing just sitting down and going into this was we want to make sure that it feels not like what you see on TV a lot of days with the shows that have, you know, teenagers in them. We didn't want it to be. I know that I immediately, anytime I am going to play, you know, a teenage role, which is, you know, 90% of the roles I play because I'm a teenager, but, you know, I would say that I always wanted to try to make it feel real and grounded. And that was imperative with this. I mean, me and Alex both just wanted to make sure that the biggest thing, I think, was to see that relationship between the brothers. And even though they're very, very different, to know that they love each other very much, and they love their parents very much, but even more so, they're just really, really tight. Like the two brothers are just so close. They grew up together. They're twins, you know, fraternal twins. So, you know, they have that closeness, that bond that is really just, I mean, I think that hopefully it's coming through on screen, because me and Alex hang out a lot in real life. We're super tight in real life. And that was one of the biggest things, just sitting down and talking to Todd and being like, hey, you know, we want to make this relationship between the brothers feel real. What's going on here? What's happened in the past? And there are big differences between the brothers. I mean, in pretty much every way imaginable. But at the same time, they're growing up at the same time and they're the same age, so they're experiencing things sort of on the same timeline. You know, they're on a parallel here. And so one of the big things was sort of like, you know, how do we make it apparent that there is a big difference between the brothers, but also that they're close and that they're a real family and they have that real grounded, that bond, you know? So that was one of the biggest things, just sitting down and talking to Todd and figuring out, like, how can we make this feel real? How can we make the audience really believe the love between these two brothers? I think that was,
and they're also very close, but they're also very antagonistic with each other, you know, which is very authentic to siblings. Right. You know, that's the way everybody is with their siblings. You know, right. Me and my brother used to scrap all day. Totally. And I think that's one of the things that the two of you bring to the screen, which gives a lot of authenticity. Do you find yourselves thinking specifically about, okay, these are the moments where they're actually really going to be there for each other, they're feeling very supportive, or like these are the small ways in which they're really going to kind of like start to niggle and to antagonize each other?
100%. Me and Alex, before every scene, we kind of, you know, we chat a little bit, and we have this like last night we were shooting a scene, and it was really intimate and emotional, and it was a moment between us, and I'm kind of comforting Alex in the scene, and you know, it was like, I don't know, like we had this like look. I remember we were like about to shoot, and we just kind of had this look, and I was like, do you want me to, like, you know, amp this up and give you a little more fear to work with on this one? And he's like, yeah. And we play with it, you know, we talk and we discuss and we work together. And that's the biggest part of this, is collaboration. You know what I mean? Because if I just went in there and did my thing, it wouldn't necessarily be what he needs. So if I just went in there and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this, you know, this is the way I'm going to do it, and nobody's going to say anything, I'm not going to listen, I'm just here to act, you know, then it wouldn't be the same. It requires that communication, that collaboration that is it's just imperative to any good show and any good relationship when it comes to acting. I think you know, you need something to play off of. You might need to ask your scene partner, like, can you give me a little more of this? Can I get a little more of that? Could you deliver the line this way? And sometimes they're going to say no. But the truth is that I'm very blessed to have Alex playing my brother, because we, like I said, get along very well, and we work together very well, I think. And both of us are very easygoing, and so if one of us needs something from the other, it's generally pretty easy to give that, I think.
And even just in the first couple of episodes of the show already, we've really seen you develop an idea of who this character is, and then have to really think about how the move is really going to change absolutely everything and completely flip everything that's been true for him and very steady for him. Like the life that he had, the friends that he had, his place on the team, all of that has suddenly completely disappeared. And so it feels like he's entering such a space of uncertainty and really not knowing where his place is in his family, in his school, who are his friends going to be. And so I was interested in how you really took that grounding foundation of who he was as a character and then thought about the impact of all of these changes and how you wanted to play that out.
Well, so I wanted it first. I wanted it to be that he has his stuff together. You know what I mean? It's Jonathan Kent is just so, he's very confident, and no matter what, he's gonna show that confidence 90% of the time, right? Unless it's to someone he's very close to, that's the only time he's really gonna show that vulnerability. Not because he has to try to hide it. I feel like Jonathan just genuinely is a very confident guy, and I feel like a lot of things in his life, kind of previous leading up to this moment, this move to Smallville, have been pretty easy for him. I mean, he's a privileged guy. He lived a good life. He has good parents. He went to a good school. He was starting quarterback. He's talented. He's this, he's that, but he's not used to these kind of hardships necessarily. I think that, he sees his brother having to deal with it, and now the tables have kind of turned. He moves to Smallville, and here he is in this completely new situation. He's away from his home, his girlfriend, everything, and now he's not playing on the Metropolis, the Metropolis Spartans football team. It's like, what? Like he wanted this. It was finally sort of, he was growing up, and he was getting in his element. And I think high school, he recognized that high school might have been some of the best years of his life. And now it's like, crap, is it going to be the best years of my life? Probably not. Just looking at that scene in episode 1 with the bonfire party, he's got these kids like beating the crap out of his brother, beating the crap out of him. It's like, this is awful. Huge change. He's miserable at this point, but he has to stay strong. I think he's a strong-willed person, and he has a good heart, and his moral compass it's on point, and I think that no matter what, he's going to continue to make good decisions as we continue. And I think he's going to grow stronger as a result of these kind of hardships that he's facing.
I wanted to ask you about the bonfire scene, actually, because that's such a huge shift for him in his entire life. Like, that's the moment that he realizes that his brother has powers. He's very clearly aware that this is something that he doesn't have. And in that instance, I feel like even without words, you're capturing the idea of, okay, what does this mean to me? What does this mean about my relationship with my brother? And so I wanted to ask about how you really thought about all of the different nuances within that moment.
I mean, it's crazy because it's like, not only is he finding out his brother has powers, but he literally just found out that his dad has powers. There's that Superman. So I don't even think, I think like, as far as nuances, it's like, it's so much that really it comes down to as simple as he's just horribly overwhelmed and in shock and just like, what? You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't even know, he's not even fully comprehending it. He's 14 years old. He's a freshman in high school. It's like, he's not even fully getting it yet. And I think that the beauty of it is that as time goes on, he's going to start to get it more. It's going to hit him a little more. I don't even think it's fully hit him yet. In that moment, he thinks it's hit him because he's shocked and he's feeling the full weight of it. But is he? You know what I mean? Is he really feeling the full weight of it? I think that it's going to, as time goes on, we're going to see even more things kind of hitting him, like, oh, but because of that, because my brother has powers, now I have to deal with this situation, or, oh, because my dad's Superman, now I have to witness this, or I have to cover for him in this situation, whatever it might be. It's like, it's going to be more and more burdens. It's like, it's already this big weight, and now it's like, it's just going to keep stacking bricks on top of that, if that makes sense, as time goes on. And it's going to change Jonathan for sure. I mean, we'll see how that goes,
Yeah. And that scene before that you were mentioning, where he finds out about his dad's powers to begin with, that changes everything. It's, okay, my dad's been hiding this from me my whole life. And then the realization of the fact that his mom has known all along and kept this from him because she doesn't have a reaction as well.
Right.
So how did that for you really just completely change the dynamic? Again, that you kind of build up this family idea of who they all were, and then that scene changes everything for them.
I mean, it's a tough moment because it's sort of coming back to the in shock and not fully comprehending it. But at the same time, it's like things are starting to click now, you know, things are starting to click. Why wasn't dad at this? Why was he doing this? Why did he, you know, why was he missing for 3 days, you know, when I was 5 years old and whatever happened? It's like things are starting to click, and I'm kind of going, okay, well, I had this preconceived notion of who my dad was, who my mom was. And yeah, all that's kind of gone now. It's out the window. But at the same time, it's like, okay, it makes sense. And eventually it's going to start to click more and more until it falls into place. But right now, I think it's just for Jonathan, it's such a moment of, I mean, literally alienation. You know, it's like I can't even look at you guys right now. I can't even look at you guys. And I think it's going to actually create a closer bond between the brothers, because even as time goes on and they start to loosen up a bit, and, you know, and they go, okay, well, fine, you know, dad's Superman, whatever. But it's always going to be there for it's always going to be that, like, I thought he was this guy, you know, I thought, and it's like, but no, he wasn't what you thought. And so it's never going to be the same relationship. It's never going to be the same. It's changed forever, unfortunately. Now, does that mean that it's not going to be a good relationship? Definitely not. I mean, it can be a beautiful relationship, and he's still our father. And I think both of the boys still love him. And it's not that now he's a different person to them. It's just that he has he's no longer a person to them. You know, he is an alien, and quite literally. And so it's going to change. It's going to change not only the way that they view him, but the way that he's their father and they are his sons. It's going to change the entire relationship, I think, in a lot of ways for a very long time. And there's going to be some damage that's probably going to take a while to heal, just from the lies and the deceit, you know?
And there's also that moment where his dad shows up to one of his football games, and, you know, obviously to the point that you were just making, he spent a lot of his childhood with his dad being gone a lot of the time. And it's very clear that that's something that he hasn't done before. And so how did you think about building out that father-son relationship with obviously a real closeness between them, but a little bit of distance because of how much time his dad spent gone for several days at a time?
Yeah. So coming back to that point, I mean, I think his dad sort of, you know, showing up at the game just randomly. I think, you know, Jonathan has really filled this gap with maybe other people. I think he's maybe not spent a lot of time with his dad. I think, but the thing is, I think the focus has always sort of been when Superman or Clark is around. The focus has maybe been a little more on Jordan, just because of the fact that he's not neurotypical. You know, he has social anxiety disorder, et cetera, panic attacks. So maybe the focus has been a little more on him. So Jonathan has had to fill that gap. I think he's still close with his dad, and he loves his dad, and his dad's been there for him and has always treated him right and been a good father, but he's not there very often, like literally quite physically present. And so seeing him, you know, just at the game with holding up a jacket and being like, and I think it takes a minute, but he makes that connection shortly after. Oh, we're going to the fortress, you know, what's happening. And I think he's really, really excited, to be honest. I think he's beyond excited. And I think that he definitely, as now that he realizes his dad is Superman, I think over time, once the relationship has healed a little more, I think that just from the shock of that, I mean, I think that he's definitely going to have an actually better relationship with his dad. It's going to take a while, but it's good he found out when he was young, because now there's still time for them to rekindle that flame and become, you know, close again.
And with relationships like that on screen and a lot of the other ones, the show as a whole really has a lot of moments of heightened reality, such as the scene we were talking about before, where his dad reveals that he has powers, and we literally see him lifting up a giant truck and moving it right in front of him. But you always bring it back to that emotional core of, what does this mean emotionally to this character? What does this mean to their relationships? And so I wanted to just ask a little bit about how you always take those larger scenes throughout the show and frame them on character and emotion choices in that way.
Definitely. It's tough because you have to always have those scenes, and you can't just do the scene, stand on your mark and say your lines and then forget about it. You have to keep that in the back of your head always. And you have to, you know, make sure you put it into context, and it really has to manifest in every scene in the future after that. So, you know, I want to make sure that for a while things are different. Things are different than they are at the very beginning, less casual, maybe a little more standoffish, pretty much with both, you know, Clark and Lois. I think Jonathan is going to approach maybe asking for a favor, or certain things a little differently than he normally would. I think they still, but again, it hasn't fully quite hit him yet. I mean, I think he's still processing, and he's going to start to see big changes in how he has to interact with his dad as time goes on. And that's going to keep kind of hitting the nail on the head, if that makes sense. Like every time that, dad, can you do this for me? Or can we go somewhere? Can you take me to here? And then like, no, I got to go do this. It's like, wait a minute, I forgot. It's almost like you forgot that he was even Superman. I feel like, being in situations like that, I feel like I've, not that I've ever found out my family member was an alien, but being in situations where it's kind of like, I need something, but that's right. That's right. Big development. You can't do that because you got a new job, whatever it might be. Or you're married now, whatever, like just something big. And it's like, wow, it's like shocking, but you constantly have to kind of remind yourself of it because there was this relationship before that was just, their whole lives, he had this idea of who he was. And so it's really hard just to flip that on its head and for Jonathan to comprehend like, oh, this is all new. I think it's tough at that age to really grasp something like that, a concept like that.
And you've always talked about how much you really enjoy stunt work on shows. And so particularly with a show like this, where there's so much opportunity for you to dive into it, what is it specifically about the intricacies of stunt work and pulling that into who a character is that you really love doing and exploring?
I like it because it's all the physicality of it for me. It's every time I'm doing a scene, it's like I want to be moving. I want to be doing something when I rehearse scenes, whether it's running lines when I was growing up, running lines with my mom or with a scene partner before we actually like while we're on set before a take, whatever it might be. Sometimes I'll even just like chew on food just to keep it grounded, keep it natural. I was watching an interview with Matthew McConaughey and he was saying that during the Wolf of Wall Street, before they did the dinner scene with him and Leo, and he does the before that, he said that he never really did the chest banging part, but just the humming and like the sort of physicality of walking around, maybe pacing and humming a little bit and kind of like nodding his head, bobbing, just like staying in that moment, kind of staying present and staying grounded. And it just, I don't know, like, I feel like, the physicality of it is just, it's always important. And so with in regard to stunts, I think that if I'm able to do a stunt myself, it really keeps me in it for the rest of the scene. So like if it cut from like me getting punched in the face and that was my stunt double, and then I had to go in and do a take where it's actually me and I have to react to that, it's going to be a lot more difficult if I don't actually, even though I'm pretending to get punched either way, it's like it keeps it a lot more in the moment if I can just actually do that myself. And it gives me something that I can actually use to maybe visualize the scenario a little better.
And you've described how the show just feels very cinematic. And when you look at it, the cinematography on it is so beautiful. And there's a lot of intricacy in the way that they build out the camera shots. So how does that really influence the way that you work with the different directors on the series and the way that they're blocking out scenes with you and the rest of the cast to make it look that way?
It's tough because they always, I feel like it's always so technical, and because it has to look so good and it has to match what we spend a lot more time on those first couple episodes and especially the pilot than time allows for on a show like this. Normally, I think you have to be moving pretty quickly when you have sometimes as much as 15 episodes, 20 episodes in the season, and you need to crank those out but still make sure that they're really good. And so it's going to be, we saw episode 3 and that was a more normal paced episode. And it still, in my opinion, looks great. And everybody else seems to think so. And that's, most shows, you don't see a lot of shows where the pilot is wildly different. In fact, you see a lot of shows where as time goes on, the show gets better in terms of the visual effects and the cinematography. And so I think that it's definitely, it's exciting stuff. I think that working with these directors as they kind of come in and out, and it's fun. I don't mind the change. I like change and I welcome it. And that's one of the things about this job that I appreciate. And some people wouldn't like that. And luckily I'm a very spontaneous person. I feel like it works with my personality, and that's part of why I love the job so much. But, it's as far as the actual like cinematography and stuff, it's pretty uniform. It's still, we still have the same director of photography, the same 2 directors of photography and the same ADs that are switching out. So it's a lot of the same sort of
as a unit, as a whole, a lot of it's going to be the same and it's going to be uniform throughout the series, which I find exciting. I think it's nice because there's those small changes and everybody it's collaborative and everybody's sort of bringing their own, spin to it. But at the same time, there's that uniformity and that certainty of, well, this is the way it's going to look when we actually see the final product.
And career-wise overall, before you'd landed Little Fires Everywhere, acting was something that you really loved and you wanted to do professionally, but you weren't yet sure if that was going to be something that was going to happen. And that sounds like it was a role that really shifted your relationship to your career and everything for you. And
definitely,
and you had such an opportunity in particular in watching, Reese and Carrie and the way that they would have conversations about their character and a lot of the specifics of scene and story choices throughout. And so coming onto a show like this, where you know that you're going to be living in this character for so long, how has that really carried through into the types of conversations that you're now having about your character and choices that he's making and directions that you see him going on?
Totally. I mean, it's going to be tough because it's different. I mean, like you're saying, it's going from something like Little Fires. It's a mini series. It's a smaller role. It's, already not even halfway through season 1. And I've spent more time on set for this show than I have for any show in the past. Easily, hands down, it sets the record, sets the bar. So, going into this, it's like now that we've been renewed for season 2, and it's like, I really have to be having these conversations and really thinking ahead and going, hey, well, now I really have to, I can't just kind of go with the flow and roll with the punches here. I really have to be collaborative. I really have to get in there and, make sure that this character is mine I make it my own, and I'm really doing my part to bring it to life, because it can't just be about the writing and the directing and the cinematography and the effects and the stunts. I mean, I've got to do my part, and I've found that as I've gotten older and working on this show more, and it's different. It's a different vibe than Little Fires in terms of the level that I have to bring, because it's just, I know that it's going to be long term. That's the big difference. That's the key difference, is I know that it's going to be probably maybe even more than 2 seasons, most likely. I mean, just looking at sort of the past of CW shows, most shows go on for at least 3 or 4 seasons. So I'd imagine, hopefully that's going to be the case for the show, and I welcome that. But I really need to make sure that I have a clear plan for kind of where I want to take the character, and that obviously, it wouldn't be my plan originally, right? I mean, I have to go to the writers and I have to go ask them. I have to ask the questions, and so it's really all about that. It boils down to asking the right questions, knowing who to ask, and being willing to be, kind of assertive and go, hey, I think we should do this, or I think we should do that. Could we try this? And being willing to really be willing to make sacrifices and be willing to go with the flow, but also at the same time, make sure that I'm confident enough in the character and in the work I'm putting in to be able to say, hey, I want to try this, or I want to do something new.
Well, I really look forward to seeing the continued evolution of this character and all the things that you managed to bring into him throughout the next, hopefully, several seasons of it. And thank you so much, Jordan.
Thanks, Mara. Appreciate it.
We did it.
Yay!